Hey everybody, welcome to React Wednesdays. My name is TJ Van Tol. I work as a developer advocate at Progress. With me, Dan Wilson. Dan, man, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. I'm Dan Wilson. I work with Blues Wireless, and we simplify IoT cellular connectivity.
So cool. So if you're new here, this is React Wednesdays. This is basically a weekly show we do where we bring in someone cool from the React world and have them tell us, show us something interesting, something that we can learn about. And just to bring this up, if you are new, I'm going to drop the website. It's telerik.com/React Wednesdays. So you can check that out if you're the type of person that likes to get calendar invites. We have a Google Calendar you can subscribe to. You can also add individual shows to your episodes. So in a minute here, we're going to invite Paul Henschel in to talk about React 3 Fiber. But next week, we'll be talking with Joe Morgan about the React developer tools. So that should be kind of interesting. And then coming up on June 2nd, the kind of secret but not so secret event that we're holding, we're going to be doing this all day on Wednesday with some pretty cool guests. So if you want to learn more about that, check out the link there, add that to your calendar. We should be having a lot of fun, and we're going to be talking about that a little bit more here in the coming weeks. So check that out. And by the way, also, if you're watching this on YouTube, so we know a lot of you subscribe to our videos through that way, come hang out with us live. We do this on Twitch. We do this every Wednesday, 1 o'clock US Eastern time. It's a great way to just hang out, ask fun questions, learn some interesting things about some cool tech. All right. So with that out of the way, I want to start talking about React 3 Fiber. But first, we've got one other special guest panelist here with us today. I want to welcome Joe Madelone. Joe, how's it going?
What's going on, gang? Doing good. Happy to be here. I'm Joe Madelone. I work for a company called LogDNA, where we try to make log ingestion suck less.
Is that your official company?
That's motto? It's on the website. That was approved. There's a trademark at the end of that statement.
Nice.
I'm out of Chicago, where I organize a general JavaScript meetup on a monthly basis. It's virtual now, and every once in a while, when we're not in lockdown, I organize a React conference called React Loop.
Very cool.
I'm stoked to be here. I've been playing with React 3 Fiber ever since it kind of showed up on my radar, and it's awesome.
Cool. Well, awesome. And speaking of React 3 Fiber, let's welcome in our special guest for today's episode, Paul Henschel, or Palu, as he's got the label here. Paul, how's it going,
Hey, everyone. Man? Yeah, my name is Poi Manges. I'm a front-end developer based in Switzerland, employed in a small company called AWV. And we are doing like CAD software for the open web. That's the thing I'm working on right now. And I'm the lead dev of React 3 Fiber, a couple of other open source projects. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, so I have a lot of questions, but maybe we could start by just the basics. Maybe you could tell people that are totally unfamiliar, what is React 3 Fiber? What is it? What does it do? That sort of thing.
Sure. So there's a small library called Three.js, and this one abstracts canvas functionality, makes it a little bit easier, introduces a couple of concepts that otherwise would not exist. And React 3 Fiber takes this and basically allows you to, is that a word, componentize? You get to form components, yeah. So instead of outputting diffs and spans, stuff like that, you are outputting meshes, materials, things like that. So you have pointer events, everything to make it easier to create feasible front-end experiences with Three.js and the canvas. That's like the basic principle.
I'm curious how you got involved in building this. Were you building with Three.js and saw like a React need of it, or what was your inspiration to get involved?
Yeah, actually, I'm using Three.js for I think at least 10 years, if it even exists so long, but it feels like eternity.
Yeah, it's been around for like a decade now, easy.
Okay, yeah, so for a long time. And at work, there's a project we do. It's called Beauty. It's like a scriptable CAD system, and it just grew in scale so complex that we just no one could maintain it anymore. it was almost impossible. And at some point, we noticed already that the front end in the beginning was also vanilla JS, CSS, and HTML. And React helped a lot to make this process easier. So it seemed like straightforward or obvious that maybe you can do the same thing for Three.js. And that's when I started to look into this.
This might be a naive question, but are there renderers for other frameworks out there? Like, did you establish that? Did you like base this off another rendering implementation, or were you sort of paving new ground or paving a new, I don't know, whatever metaphor I'm going for, right?
Yeah, I think at this point, at least for Three.js, it's kind of unique.
It's a very
something-
unique. It's a very
Yeah.
unique approach.
Exactly. I think there's something people call binding, right? So there's a library you want to open up to the declarative way. And you take this library, it has, I don't know, 100 things. You wrap each of these things, make a component or whatever. But this creates some friction because if this library updates, you are screwed, or your customers or users are screwed because there's high risk involved. If this guy doesn't want to do this anymore and maintain, this whole thing goes down the drain. And Three.js, I think they have 800 classes, something like this. So if it would have been a binding, this would have been taken a toll on my life. You take each class and you wrap it. It's impossible. And Three.js especially, they break code every month. So they don't have semantic versioning.
Oh, wow.
You have to figure out what changes by bumping into it. So this is a new approach. It's called a reconciler. There's a package called React Reconciler. It's from the React team. So React itself is cross-platform, doesn't have any relation to CSS or the DOM itself. It just says, okay, this is how a component is formed. And you need to teach React what a platform is about. Like React DOM, it tells React, okay, this is a div and this is a span, and that's how it works. And React Fiber functions in the same way. So extremely small code base. It is not really reliant on one Three.js version or another. That makes it maintainable for me and for contributors.
Speaking of contributors, I see you have 13,000 GitHub stars, almost 700 forks. What is the contribution process like? From what I can see, there's over 100 contributors. What are they doing, and what would you like them to do?
I usually try to give people as much stake as I can. I want them to use it successfully. I want it to be feasible. So if you are a company or even a small project and you need to, you either face some problem or you need extended functionality, you're almost invited to come and make a pull request or talk to me, and we I don't know, dish something out. So it's very easy and welcoming, I think.
Paul, I'm curious. So yeah, the approach with the reconciler is so unique. Like I remember when I first saw the React reconciler, and it was like immediate. People started, it was like a land grab. I'm going to output to this. I'm going to output to that. And I remember thinking like, well, it's all done. And then I was, looking at your library, and it's such a unique approach instead of wrapping a library like you were talking about. But at the same time, if you look up the documentation on React Reconciler, it's a lot like the old context API. It's like warnings everywhere. This is experimental. It's not stable. So I am curious, going into it, did that concern you? And then I'm also curious if there's kind of some pros and cons here. I think we heard about the pros, but I certainly haven't delved deep enough into the reconciler to know where there are dragons. Yeah,
I'm not so much concerned. That's just, I don't know. I like being on the edge. I don't have any problems with it. Yes. I mean, it sucks because, as you said, there's no real documentation. So it's up to me to figure out, okay, they changed something. You go version up, something breaks or types don't match anymore. But up to this point, I think it's been pretty smooth. I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with it. Like there are no bugs or stuff like this. It works. And it's the same technology that is also used in React Native and React DOM. The only difference is that they included, I think, with Closure compiler. And yeah, I think that's that. The experimental flag is because they themselves they develop it further. So, but it's the same thing, the same thing that drives React DOM. So that kind of pacifies me.
It's funny, Joe. I found what you're talking about, the reconciler. I'll drop this in the chat too. The README is like very much like up top. It's like, this is experimental. Then it's like, use at your own risk. And then it says, this isn't complete, like sort of thing. It's funny, but at the same time, like the React team is also kind of guilty of doing that with a lot of different things, right? Like they like to put the experimental label on a bunch of stuff and sometimes don't take it off for years at a time too.
Yeah,
translation.
definitely.
Don't file any bugs on this. We got it.
You're on your own. Hey, Paul, I'm maybe going to mispronounce this, but you mentioned that you were maintainer on React 3 Fiber, and you said some other ones. I think it's a lot of other ones. But there's this Poi Manges, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, collective, and like I'm so impressed by. I haven't dug through it enough to see if it's generating a whole bunch of projects, but also like kind of bringing in a whole bunch of amazing work. It's just, there's a real awesome like community of people there. And I'm just, I don't know if you can talk about that or, explain it a little better, how that came to be, what's going on there.
Yeah, sure. I think it goes back to the principle: don't build an audience, build a network. And that's what I'm trying to do with this. It started with React Spring. That was an animation library I once did. And I wanted people to contribute and feel like welcome. I also wanted them, like if they really make their hands dirty, I wanted them to feel like it's theirs, co-authorship, shared funds, stuff like that. And I didn't feel comfortable that this thing was still tied to my GitHub account. So I created a neutral organization. Back then it was still called React Spring. And it just grew from there. So then came Zustand and React 3 Fiber and so many others, Use Gesture and so on. And at some point I decided to make more official, like it's called Poi Manges. I kind of like the stuff. It goes back to esoterist stuff, occultisms, and things like that. Just things that I like. That's where the name comes from. But it's a open source developer collective, so everyone's invited. We I think 20 or 30 developers on this thing, and what we do is we create networks, like all day on the Discord. We pitch each other projects, or I go, hey, let's do this, and then 5 guys or girls come and help, and it's just awesome to be not alone. It helps.
That's fantastic, and I love your approach there of trying to stimulate a community and a network. It's got to be a very good feeling just to see people enjoying themselves and doing good work together.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, this is an impressive set of projects. I didn't realize that your group was also behind React Spring, Zustand, which I believe you can pronounce better than I can.
That's correct. Almost.
Actually, going back to React 3 Fiber a little bit, this is sort of a random question, but I didn't realize like Three.js was like just not a project I follow, that it was chaotic in terms of they don't do semantic versioning and that they release all the time. Actually, I'm curious, do you, considering you now run a pretty like important dependency in some sense for a lot of people that use Three.js, do you work with the Three.js team a lot? Like I'm also curious, just like, who is Three.js? Like, where does that project get run out of and operated?
Yeah, the cool thing is because it's a renderer, it's not reliant on a particular Three.js version, so you can take any. I don't know. They just removed TypeScript. The guy, Mr. Dupe, he said, "Okay, I don't like TypeScript. Let's eliminate it." So that's fine. They removed TypeScript. So if you want it, you go back a little, or you take some extension library. It's all up to you. So that's a cool thing. I don't care if they break it. That's up to the user to figure out. There's almost no competition. That's just how it is. There's only Babylon. Or not only, it's an awesome project, but I think it's not as big, not as established. So people have just learned to I don't know, to live with it.
Yeah, it's sort of weird. It's like, this is the thing that fascinates me about the development world, but like especially the front end world, is that there are these massive projects that, like, I mean, Three.js has done, like, it's been amazing, right? It's created a lot of value for a lot of people, and it's out there and totally free to use. But sometimes we never think of the people behind it and the amount of work and process that goes into this. And it's just crazy to me how much stuff of that is just hidden and out of sight, out of view, out of mind.
Yeah, for sure. It's a huge project, and they get lots of contributions. We also try to do our best to give back. So Poi Manges maintains lots of repositories that are good for like everyone involved, the React crowd as well as just plain Three.js. Also, of course, if we find bugs and stuff like this, we go to them and talk and see if we can get it fixed. We try at least.
Yeah.
It's a citizen of this ecosystem. It's not like against Three.js, not at all.
You know, as somebody who's done a little bit of Three.js, gone through some small training courses and learned like the basics of it, but never really felt comfortable building a large project on it. Like React 3 Fiber for me, it seems like a huge leap forward. I mean, the ability to, I mean, you know, the React community has come up, and Three.js has been around a lot longer than React. But, you know, when you learn Three.js, you know, it's like seeing geometry mesh, seeing geometry mesh, and you just keep doing it over and over and over. And with some of the related libraries, it was so pleasing to just drop in orbital controls, like done. You know, it's I really feel like this is a lot of people who try this out, they're gonna tinker, and then it's oh my god, what am I gonna build? Like, what, you know, now that I can do this so easily, what am I gonna build? And there's yeah, I'm blown away by the community around this. I noticed React 3 accessibility is in there now. Like, that's an ongoing project. That's amazing. I submitted I fixed a link because I was going through all the documentation, and so I submitted a PR, and Sarah Vieira approved it, and I was just like blushing. Yeah, it's
sometimes you can meet your heroes, Joe.
Yeah, she's awesome. I'm actually surprised she's in Poi Manges, and she's doing something crazy at the moment. It's like every evening I check in, what she's done again, and it's, I don't know what she does. It's like magic. She's working on some content distribution systems for Marketplace. It doesn't exist in the web space, so you can.
But there is a repository
assets
for it. You can pull it down, and
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
filled with little models. Yeah, it's.
You saw it.
I've been through everything.
Ah.
I'm like a React 3 Fiber stalker at this point.
Excellent. You're in the right place.
So, Paul, one thing you've mentioned, I think, twice now, but I don't think my brain is fully interpreted, is you said, like, you're not dependent on a Three.js version. Could you talk about how that's possible? Because, like, maybe I don't understand what React 3 Fiber is doing, but, like, my brain says if there's something that's adapting Three.js to make it easier for React, like that it would have to be dependent on Three.js. So I'm kind of curious just how that works.
Yeah, sure. If you want, I can even show it.
Yeah, it's probably be a good time.
Let's just share the screen for a sec.
Yeah. Can bring that up because it's blowing my mind a little bit.
I'm guessing lots of shims.
All right. You see something?
Mhm.
Yeah, we got it up now.
Okay, cool. So that was an image where I wanted to show the difference between plain Three.js and React. On the left, you see Three.js. On the right, you see React 3 Fiber. And the basic idea is Three.js is imperative. So you go through all the celebration. You have your global space. You set up objects. Then you have responsive. You react to events, and you have resize and the render loop, and so on and so forth. So let's try how this. Let's see how this looks in practice. What we have here is like a little cube. It has a couple of properties. It's yellow. If I hover it, gets pink. I can click it, make bigger. Click it, it gets to normal size. So as you can see, this is Three.js. It takes, I mean, it's not that much. It's like 70 lines. But there's some nasty stuff already in here. Like I don't even know what this is. I'm not good with math. I suck at this. But the basic idea is it's just like vanilla DOM. So you have your global space. You create objects. These objects, they need to be known throughout the source space. Then you have, I don't know, resize. The thing wants to respond. Then you have the events. If I hover it, need to shoot a ray through the scene that pierces the mesh. And in the end, you have this little thing. It's a render loop. I'm coming to your question just to have some build up.
Yeah.
And this is the same thing in React. You have a small component. It's the same thing. You pull from React, the NPM library, you form a function component. The only difference is now you have mesh and box geometry, things like that. And it looks a little bit strange, perhaps, to people that think JSX is HTML. It's not, of course. But as you can see, everything is contained. You have state, you use useState, you just use onClick, onPointerOver, and so on. For instance, let's see onPointerOver just set states a flag, the hovered flag, to true or false. And then you just put it in here into the color, and that's it. And because this is a component, you can, of course, take it, add it a second time. And now you have two components overlaid. You can give it a position. Let's put it here. And they have both their contained component. Like the Three.js thing that I made is like far from this principle. And everything is like interwired because everything needs to be known. That's how you create spaghetti code. So how is this possible? I made a mini renderer once. That was the first commit that I made to React 3 Fiber. It looks the same. You have a component. It has a group, a mesh, and a couple of properties. But in this sandbox, I have the whole like reconciler. And the way it works is you use a library called React Reconciler, and they give you a construct called Reconciler, and you need to fill out some little form. In this form, you teach React what this platform is about. The most important callback is create instance, and it gets a type. And this type is the string of the JSX elements. So group, mesh, and so on. So what I'm getting here is a group, and my mission is to turn this group into a Three.js object or whatever platform I want to deliver on. So I just say new 3, this is the namespace. in goes the type, and now I have a real Three.js object. This I pass back to React. Now React knows, okay, group, and this is the instance. And now just a couple of tiny little methods where I'm teaching React how Three.js like appends children or inserts or removes. The whole thing is just this. That's it. What's this? That's 100 lines, and the rest is just some boilerplate and fill-in code. Here's the familiar renderer method. It just opens up a React root, takes care of updating, and unmount component on node is also like standard. And with this little thing, you have tied a renderer to React. React now takes this component, like slides it through this reconciler, and that's it. So React Fiber actually does not depend on Three.js in package.json. It's just a peer dependency. So if you want to use it, you need to install it yourself. You say npm install 3, npm install React Fiber, and this is the basic principle how it works. This is also pretty new, I think. You can do this for, I think, now 2 years. But that's how it works. That's why it doesn't need to bind or wrap classes. It's pretty futuristic, if you ask me. Like this is crazy. This little config here, and of course with this you can make everything, every library, every platform. And there's some crazy platforms out there. Like you can, I don't know, control hardware with React or the shell. There's some cool project called Ink. React Native, of course, they're all driven by this principle. So does this answer your question?
It does. I'm actually pretty impressed that, well, I'm just impressed in general, but I'm shocked that it's that bit where you just sort of convert the sort of component or whatever you're typing in React to Three.js there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm shocked that just works. I guess like it makes sense to me, but in my brain it would be like, I would naively think that, oh, you need completely different handling for the different Three.js primitives, right? Like depending on whether Three.js is getting, I don't even necessarily know but like a circle or a square or whatever, like it would need to be handled differently. But it looks like you just sort of teach React that like this is like a unit of thing in Three.js, and like then it already knows how to deal like, oh, well, when I type it in JSX, this is what I do it. This is what happens when I need to re-render it or remove it from the rendering, and it kind of handles that automatically.
Yeah, to some extent. I mean, there's still some glue code that you need to do. I mean, that was just the trial. That was the first thing I tried out, and it looked promising to me. But of course, it's React Fiber small code. Then this events takes lots and lots of code because the complex. You need to reinvent bubbling, all the stuff. Three.js itself, they don't have events. They don't have anything like that. And some other thing, but it's still very generic. It just doesn't need to know that much about Three.js. It just creates the basics, like default scene, default camera. You can still, of course, exchange all the stuff later on, but gives you some presets, so you just get going. As you see, there's no boilerplate. There's no math. You don't need to convert coordinates, whatever.
No, it's beautiful.
It's all pretty straightforward.
It's very beautiful and encapsulated. And frankly, if that's great. Like I totally get what you mean about the imperative versus declarative issue here. And you know, what you've put in place is, like you said, you can just make another cube by adding another component. Like who wouldn't want to do it this way?
Yeah, of course. It's the same thing that React DOM did for the web, for HTML. It used to be the same. You just have like a DOM, you fill it, and you need to query nodes and mutate stuff. It just creates a mess and lots of friction. There are no components, at least if we pretend that web components don't exist. And yeah, it just helps. This declarative model makes it a lot easier to do Three.js. And some people, they think, oh, hey, maybe it's limited, but really it's not. Everything that's possible in Three.js is possible here. You can make games and like the craziest things. Even if you want to check out, go to docs.Poi Manges, and you can see the showcase. There are things in here that you would not believe that React is the one driving it. Like here's something fancy. That's a game I made just to try if it's working. And yeah, this is React. This is just a state machine going through events and set state. It's like forms, just with the canvas.
I love that. It's
I've
like
been building
forms.
software
Same
for
thing.
decades.
Yeah, of course.
And if someone told me build a game, we'll give you $1 million, or we're going to throw you off the bridge, I would get my swimsuit on. Like, I really have no idea how to do this. It's amazing. And you built all this with React 3.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I want people to explore the space because I don't know, Canvas is not so prevalent in front end, especially in React. I know that people want to have fancy landing pages, and basically there's only like a very secluded, small, like elite group. You know what awards is, right? Or FWA. These are the web pages that get like awards, and they're very fancy, but most people would not know how to do it. And I'm doing it for them. So Three.js is not as complicated as many people think, especially with the declarative model. So everyone can do fancy stuff. And these examples, they're super small. They help you to understand, give you some inspiration.
Yeah, the business that we're in, we sell physical hardware for connecting IoT devices over the cellular network. And one of the questions that comes up a lot is how big is this and how thick is it and what does it connect to? And so some sort of visual way of showing that off, even if it was sort of kind of a simplified way, would make a ton of sense. This may actually be something we should look at.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've been distracted looking through these showcases because they're quite cool. And I think to your point too, like, when I sort of see random Three.js source code, I look at it and go like, it takes me a long time to parse through what it's doing. And on these examples, just looking at the raw source, even if I don't totally understand everything, I sort of can get some context, right? It's like, okay, well, I'm in this part of it and I know like, okay, here's if I wanted to mess with this, this is where I can tinker with. Whereas with raw Three.js stuff, like you don't have that same ability to just hop in and know what's going on. I am curious, like, especially in some of these more, because these are some really cool stuff. So I did drop the link in the chat, and we'll make sure to get it if you're watching this on YouTube, we'll make sure to get this in the description as well, so you can play with these, which I highly encourage you to do, because you'll get distracted because they're pretty sweet. But I do have a question. So for these more advanced ones, are there certain things, like, have you run into performance problems as like you start to really like push the boundaries here? Are there any like things to be aware of? Like,
yeah, that's like most people's number one scare, because I don't know why people think React is slow. It isn't, and what you see is mostly outside of React. So the whole animation, everything that happens inside the view is encapsulated. Wait, I can show you this real quick. You see that they are spinning, and we output a mesh, and I just put a reference on it, just like I would on a regular div element.
yep.
Then I have this hook. It's called useFrame. What this hook does is it binds this component to the render loop. So everything inside here fires 60 times per second, and it's completely outside of React, of course. So that would correspond to the same thing we have seen in the other Three.js vanilla example, where they have this all-encompassing huge render loop. And here it's the same, but it's self-contained. So only this component, it's like a function call, super quick. And if I unmount this component, like this is hot reload, I go like this, and now it's gone, and it takes away this subscription. So in itself, there's no worry because there's no overhead. There's zero overhead. But in scale, I think React runs circles around Three.js. It's faster than Three.js. And I've demonstrated it multiple times. It gets people really riled up. No one wants to hear this. They start fights with me on Twitter. But there's a thing called concurrent mode in React. And as I said, I'm not scared of these experimental things. I'm using them all the time. And it can actually do things that Three.js will never be able to do. It can outperform Three.js, and I think even pretty easily.
I'm curious, what do you use to sort of test that? Like, what's your like benchmarking? Like, if you really want to push the boundaries here, what do you do?
Yeah, I made a project for this. Let's see if I find it. Schedule a test. It's here.
Yeah, I'm curious if you really want to absolutely throw everything at this. I'm curious what that looks like.
Yeah. So this thing, I don't know. I could start it, but better not because it could freeze the tab or the browser. So you can see this is like Three.js. It's going wild. In this one, it has 2 frames per second. In this one, it has 13. What it does is it creates a geometry, text geometry, and it takes a while for Three.js to process. Not Three.js's fault. On the web, we are on a single core, single thread, I mean. So everything you do, it counts. You cannot just take 10,000 objects and create them. Basically, why we have virtualized lists. A virtualized list, it takes only as many items as the screen can hold. It does not matter if you have 10 million items or 10,000 or 10. It does not matter. The screen can only fit 100, and 100 is nothing. So it's the same principle. React has no chance, Three.js has no chance to run this application here. Let's just risk it. I start.
Yeah, and is it? Yeah, let's do it live. Why not?
Let's do it live. If it crashes, I can come back later.
Yeah, you just rejoin the same link. Then
don't worry. I coughed earlier and my camera disconnected. I don't know who noticed that, but it was really awkward.
I mean, you started off by saying you like experimental stuff, and so I feel like this is right up your alley.
Yeah. I mean, I need to experiment with this because I need to think forward what comes next, and I want people to use this in scale and do some crazy stuff with this. So what you see now is React in concurrent mode. It renders lots and lots and lots of text geometry. For some reason, it's a little bit choppy. I think it could be because I'm transmitting. Normally, you have like 60 frames per second.
Yeah.
And it doesn't hit, it doesn't skip. Now it's a little bit shaky, but it's still pretty good. I mean, there are two, wait, I measured this out, 2 seconds of load that are repeated every, I don't know, 3 seconds. So imagine you execute a function that freezes for 2 seconds. I mean, obviously the tab would freeze. And this is exactly what's happening here. React is taking this amount of load and it's distributing it. It's deferring some components. And now let's see when I switch this off. So this is Three.js. And I hope you can still hear me because my tab is almost gone. Let's take this off, then gets even worse. Now it's everything at the same time. It's like, I don't know, 500 times it's executing text geometry. And this is how Three.js normally would function. It has no chance to keep up.
So it's basically, it sounds like because you're using React, you get to take advantage of just more or less React's like algorithm for managing, I don't know, what would you call, like objects or like, whereas Three.js has no concept of this like reconciler to manage a lot of things on the screen and being updated at the same time. Is that somewhat accurate at least?
Yeah, I mean, everything is virtualized in React Concurrent mode. Think of it as if the entire application is a virtual list.
Yeah.
You divide your application into little components. It could be a list or it could be a table, whatever. And let's say your table has 10 million entities. They just come from the website, from the server. The normal approach is to page it, right? You create pages for it. But let's assume you don't. Obviously, everything would choke. And React, it executes as many tables as cells as it can. And at some point, it notices, okay, we are above 16 milliseconds of load per frame. And it says, hey, why not prioritize content that's more like user-facing, input, and so on. But you can also steer it and guide React through and say, okay, this is more important than that. And that's React's future. That's what's about to come. But you can, of course, still use it.
You know, I cannot get past the shoe configurator. I know you're trying to show how to take like a realistic model and do something with it, but can you walk us through how that works, this GLTF conversion thing that you have? This is
Okay.
fantastic. It's beyond like when you did the cube thing, I'm like, yeah, that's a normal thing I see with web animations, but the shoe thing, I'm just going, whoa, that's intense.
I'm not sure. No, wait. This is also made by Sarah, by the way. So there's a service called GLTF JSX. It's a CLI command, and GLTF is a model, and it contains whatever. You can make models in Blender. You can fetch them from Sketchfab or Google Poly or whatever, or your designer gives you a model and you want to have it on your website, so you go GLTF. But what you normally would use in plain Three.js, you just get served a black box. You get a thing, you can throw it in your scene, and that's that. And it kind of sucks because you want to change stuff. And this thing, this GLTF JSX, it turns it into a component. So let's load up Zuzi. And you can see that it creates a component graph. So it's JSX. It extracts everything from this GLTF, the groups, the meshes, the materials. And then you can go in and change stuff. We even had, let me quickly look for it, GLTF JSX. That's a better explanation. That's visual. I think it's this one. Perfect. So that's how it starts. You have Blender, you have a model, or your designer does this. They export it as GLTF. Now you use the CLI command. It turns it into a React component. You copy this thing, you throw it into your project, you put the component in, and boom, you have it. It's there. And because it's React, you can immediately make it actionable. And as you can see here, I go in, I delete stuff. The soul is vanishing. Now I can put it back. This is impossible with Three.js. Right? I can change colors just like that. It's all hot reload, so I don't lose state. I can add events to this just like that. And it's so easy to take something like a real model, like a real asset, and make it dynamic. And they're so far removed in Three.js, it's not even a joke. They have nothing like this. They have only this black box. They put it into their scene. They have to traverse it if they want to change. That destroys the data, of course, so they cannot make it reusable. So it's pretty fancy.
It's amazing, is what it is.
Blown away. That's
I do want to mention one thing that I think is kind of important in this. If you've ever developed anything in the canvas, it's like you said, it's like a black box. But with this works. I mean, you can open in React DevTools and see everything that's going on in the canvas.
You can even change props, everything.
Yeah, it's pretty. It's not only like that you're taking advantage of all that comes with the React, libraries and frameworks, or whatever we call them now. Like you've created, or I found that like you've created for me like a reference library that makes me want to do this with all sorts of other libraries now.
Yes, it's happening for real.
Yeah,
they
amazing.
they have, I think, React Babylon now, and they are using the same concepts. They are using suspense, the loaders, all these concepts. They are like slowly propagating. I think this is the first time that a library also breaks up this concept of a all-encompassing render loop. All these concepts, they're like slowly distributing. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's great. You know, if you go through the Poi Manges repository, like you can feel that there's a lot of important and exciting things happening there. So I highly recommend just take an afternoon on a Sunday and just get lost in all of those amazing repositories.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm looking through I found the Babylon one. These are all of these demos are kind of, like you said, I could lose some time just fooling around with this. It's just fun to play with. Actually, speaking of this, are there any other things you want to highlight, like cool things that people have built with React 3 Fiber? Like, I'm trying to think of, like, other than if I'm just your average React developer, right? Like, other than building this as like a fun side project, are there like, what applications are like, what sort of things do you see developers using to build this? Or maybe you can give some people some ideas of things you've built for inspiration.
Mm-hmm. Of course, I could show you the thing that we are building at work if you want.
Yeah.
It's this one, Brilli.io. And that's where it comes from. The starting ground. So this is like a CAD system that runs within the browser. It's scriptable. So what you can do in Blender, you can do here by code. Like here's a little model. Don't know if you can see it.
Yep.
And it's been made just with a couple of like scripting lines, but you can parameter. I'm German, okay? You can put parameters on it, and
yeah,
that makes it. For instance, you want to sell something like I don't know, some table, whatever. You can let people configure this right in the browser with real CAD's functionality. You can import a model. It already has parameters. You allow people to change stuff. Then it recalculates. So that's basically what we are doing with this. But as you can see, it has sketches and all the complex stuff as well. But it's so open-ended. It could be games. It could be anything. It could be a fancy landing page. My whole Twitter game is that I retweet what people do with this. So you will never remember my Twitter handle, but maybe one day you see it around, and there's always some fancy stuff on it. So it's hard to say it's for this or that. I mean, that's mostly because of Three.js itself. It's so versatile.
Yeah, I actually, like, as we were looking through, especially the shoe example, I could totally see like e-commerce type stuff. Like I want to configure something in the browser, or like you said, like the homepage type idea is good too. Like I thought of like GitHub has like a crazy new homepage where they're showing like a globe spinning and some stuff. Mm-hmm. And like, if you told me today to build something like that, I'd look at you and go like, I don't know what the heck to do. But now, like, knowing this exists, I'm like, okay, I have some ideas, like, right? Like I know React, so I could use this to throw together like a quick model, and it's just React, so I can make it interactive. So like some ideas of some like cool things you could toss on like a homepage for like a really cool just visualization. And because it's React, you can throw data in there, you can do whatever, right, really.
Exactly. Product customizers come to mind. Like this shoe example, it's very simple, but it's also very detailed, because if you notice, there's a shadow underneath, and there's like multiple layers here that you can alter very easily. And there's the texture to the shoe. And so, this isn't like the equivalent of a div-based shoe that you've somehow cobbled together. This is what looks like a shoe. And apparently it's 3D as well. So, I mean, what more do you want?
Well,
right?
this is a lot easier. This reminds me of all the people that like build this sort of stuff with just CSS. You know how you see those demos, and those things are, I mean, they're crazy impressive, but then you look at the CSS and it's like 1,000 lines of CSS, and like this is far like more approachable. It's for like throwing a 3D model that I either had a designer made or I bought somewhere, and like instantly I have something to play with in React. Is pretty amazing.
For sure. The thing is, people think that something like this is complex. They say, okay, this must be like 1,000 lines, and it would be in Three.js. It's nothing. This is the whole application. It's like 80 lines of code. That's it.
Yeah.
This is the state. It contains the colors. The shoe comes directly from GLTF JSX. It's just like in the video, you've seen it. I sprinkle some stuff in it. Here's our events. These events just change the state. And here's the color picker that I use, some React component. And here's my main app component where everything comes together. And it's really easy. It's approachable, I would say.
Yes, approachable. I was saying earlier when we first started talking about it that like kind of after I played with it a little bit and did some kind of novelty things and some tutorials, I was immediately like, what am I going to build with this? And it's so awesome. Like I even looked at that exact same GitHub spinny globe.
Yeah.
And I had the exact same thought. I was like, well, I could make that. And I think it's awesome that this is probably the common response. Like once you play with it a little bit, you realize like, oh, this has been made so easy. I feel guilty for not knowing what to build, and just ideas start coming up. So it's, yeah, I'm just fanboying about this library over and over and over.
Yeah, that's how it's meant to be.
Yeah, we have, so one of our mascots for React Wednesdays is our ninja chicken. And now I'm thinking like, I need to approach my boss like, we need a 3D ninja chicken, right? Like it's because, I mean, I have GIFs of it moving, but like this is next level, right? Like I don't need it. We can go to another dimension here.
Yes. Get on that.
Well, yeah.
I expect to see a 3D ninja chicken very soon.
Anything less would be uncivilized.
Well, Paul, this has been great. I if anybody has any last questions in chat, make sure to get those in here in the next minute or two. Joe, did you have any other questions here before we start to wrap up?
I can probably ask Paul questions all day, but I'm going to let him off the hook. Thanks, Paul. This is awesome. I'll be scrounging around your repositories.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So, I mean, Paul, this has been great. Is there anything else that we haven't got to that you or anything else you want to plug here? If I guess one question I always like to ask at the end is if people do want to get started, do you have a preferred route? Is it just look at the documentation? Is there any place in particular you'd point people?
Yeah, we have pretty good documentation these days. You can just go there and leads you through the first steps that you need to take. Just learn the Three.js basics. You need to know React, of course, and yeah, that should get you going. The examples, of course, they help a lot.
Awesome. And I just tossed a link to the docs in the chat, and we should have the showcases are in there. So I've been trying to drop in links for things as we went through. Well, cool. We do like to end with any plugs that people have. Joe, do you have anything you want to plug here to wrap up with?
No.
No.
You told me to think about it at the beginning. I thought about it. I was like, I'm not selling books. There's no conference right now. So someday, maybe next year, we'll do React Loop again. I'm looking forward to that. So
Should be fun. I was intending to go, but then like the world ended, so I never got to experience
we did
it.
really well in 2019, and we put in the exact same amount of work and effort in 2020 and sold out almost immediately, and then had to just stop at the last second. So
I was rooting for you, Joe. I really was.
I was too.
Hopefully, I feel like we're on like the precipice, so hopefully we'll be back here soon.
Yeah. So
cool, Dan. Anything you want to plug?
Yeah, I'll mention the Enterprise React newsletter. That's how I found out about Paul and his work. So, it's a newsletter created by developers for developers. So they'll never sell your email address. Feel free to subscribe if that's your kind of thing. Issues come out every 2 weeks.
Cool. So I'll drop that in the chat, and I'll just plug React Wednesdays and mention again that we have some cool upcoming shows coming up. So the React Dev Tools is next week, just something that I always feel like I underutilize. So I'm looking forward to that. And June 2nd, we're doing React Wednesdays all day. So that's going to be fun as well. So follow the link in the chat if you want to learn more about that. But I think that's it. So Paul, thanks again, man. This was really cool. You've genuinely inspired me to. I'm going to look at all visualizations across the web differently after this. So this was a lot of fun.
Okay, cool. I'm glad you like it.
All right. Well, cool. Thanks everybody for joining. Again, we do this every Wednesday, same time. So come hang out, have fun with us. But until next week, see everybody.
Thanks, guys.